Welcome, everyone. I'm Sue Barber, author, former IT director for a Fortune 500 company, turned executive coach, and this is the Visibility Factor podcast, where we explore how to raise your visibility and play bigger at work and in life. We'll explore key topics and welcome guests that help you shift your thinking about yourself so you can see new possibilities for your leadership. I'm on a mission to create a visibility movement for leaders to show their value and be seen for their true talent. Are you ready to take the next step towards a higher level of visibility for yourself? Let's go. Today's episode of the Visibility Factor podcast is brought to you by Amplify You, the ultimate program designed to unleash your full potential and amplify your success. Imagine having a personal coach cheering you on, guiding you through a journey of self-discovery, and helping you break free from those limiting beliefs that have been holding you back. That's exactly what Amplify You is all about. Whether you're a leader now or aspiring to be one, this program is your ticket to a more confident, empowered you. It's like having a supportive friend in your corner encouraging you to dream big. It's about having the career success that you want and creating a life you truly deserve. Amplify You offers a unique experience to help you build the confidence to tackle any challenge life throws your way. If you're interested in learning more about the program, please visit susanmbarber.com and click on the menu item Programs. Are you ready to transform your life and your career? Let's make it happen. Welcome back to the Visibility Factor podcast. This is Sue Barber, your host. In today's episode, we're going to talk about what makes you unique. Now, when you're young, think about some things that people might have told you were good at, something that you thought was really special. You might be a really good baseball player, or you might have played the piano really well, and people could see that about you. It was something that they couldn't do. But if there was something that made you unique that maybe people didn't see as a positive, obviously baseball and piano would not be those examples, but there might be something else that you did that people didn't see as a positive, and they might have teased you about it instead of celebrating what you have to offer and seeing it as unique and amazing. Now, unfortunately, when you're in school, it can be a tough time between trying to fit in and not stand out. You might have been criticized by a family member or someone from school that just can't help themselves. They just have to say it. And when they did that, they made you self-conscious about it. So what do? Well, some people will take what makes them unique and hide it. They'll put it away and they won't even do it anymore because they're afraid of being judged. It's a protective mechanism to avoid someone that might call you out for it. And unfortunately, that hides something great about you. You're tired of hearing the criticism and opinions of others because it's difficult, and it becomes easier to quit talking about it or showing your gift to others. Now, this approach of minimizing what you can do becomes a pattern that you might have had back then, and you carry on to where you are now. Contorting yourself into what everyone else wants you to do and how they want to see you leads you to make choices that are not always your own, even though it might appear to be. Laura Cheadle in episode 120 talked a lot about this, so I'll share the link in the notes and you can listen to her episode about how she had done some of that in her own life. I've experienced this as well. I wore a mask of sorts each day. My brain told me to be who they want you to be. That's how you get promoted. I know for a fact, though, now with hindsight, that I created a story that helped me to fit in. It kept me safe. It also meant that I hid my gifts behind others who I thought were better at certain things than I was. Instead of celebrating my own gifts and celebrating theirs too, I had a bit of me versus them attitude, not in a bad way, but more in an envious way. I wished I could be like them, and I didn't recognize that I didn't have to be. They had gifts and so did I. It didn't have to be a this versus that. It could have been, how can we combine our gifts instead? So in the book, I wrote a few things here that I'm going to share with you that I think really hit home with some of these points. One of the excerpts is, you have unique gifts that people need to see, and hiding them from yourself and other people doesn't help you. You need to step out in front of people and let them see who you are and what you can do. In my years as a coach, I've been witness to so many leaders overcoming their fear and increasing their confidence. Everyone deserves that moment when they realize that they've shifted their perception of themselves and no longer need or want to hide behind anyone else. Everyone can be authentic in their own leadership, use their voice, and show their value. So what I can see now is that I had just been filled with self-doubt at that point in time. I was in comparison mode, and it made it hard for me to see my gifts as actual gifts. I wasn't in a place of self-acceptance yet. It took me some time to get there, but the acceptance of who you are and what you have to offer is an amazing place to be. You can stop living in a place of comparison and not being good enough to a place where you trust yourself and recognize that what you have is a unique set of gifts for you and that you can share with others too. Another excerpt from the book is every person has their own unique style, strength, and gifts. A leader can build upon these traits and leverage the diversity of thought, perspective, and experiences in their team. Do you compare your inside with others' outside? Look at social media and you'll see that everyone appears to have it all together. Is the life they show on social media real or a fictional portrayal? Everyone has both bad and good stuff in their life, and no one is perfect. Let me say that again. No one is perfect. Focus on your own unique value and strengths that you bring to the world. You have a responsibility to do that for yourself. How can you continue to share those gifts and make them visible, both to help yourself and support anyone who needs them? So in the book, I wrote about different types of imposter syndrome. And I think for this one, comparison really rings true. Comparison is where you might spend your time focused on what others are doing instead of yourself. So I wanted to read an excerpt on that as well. Everyone wants to be seen in a positive way and recognized for doing well in their jobs. But how much of your time is spent focused on what your management or others think of you? When the day goes well, you may not think about it too much at all. It becomes a challenge when you get feedback on an issue or you're criticized with how you handled a situation. You start to watch what you do and say all the time. This can cause you to hide, and it may limit your productivity and blur your focus. You can only control what you do every day. If you want to make a change, then do it. Don't do it for someone else, though. Do it for yourself. Focus on yourself and the great gifts that are unique to you. Do the best you can and believe in yourself. It's been said that comparison is the thief of joy. Time is too short to spend focused on everyone else. So think about that for a second. How much of your energy is being devoted to try to be all things to all people? Could you let that go and simply be you? Here's the interesting part of my story. No one was making me conform. It was a story that I told myself. I told myself a story that I needed to be this person. And I did that so I could keep myself safe. It was the ego getting in the way and saying that I needed to show up in a certain way to be a leader. But I didn't really need to do that. For example, I told myself I wasn't a good speaker. And so anytime the offer to go speak somewhere came up, I had a huge resistance to it. I created a story and said I wasn't good at it, so I wouldn't have to do it. That worked for a while. I stayed safe, but what I had to share was also hidden away. It was all driven by the fear of not being good enough. So thank goodness my boss at the time really found a way to help me see that it was important that I did talk about some stuff at a conference in the future. It was 1 year from that date when we talked about it, and I had a lot of fear about it. I had a lot of resistance to doing it, but I knew that what we had done as a company was important to get out in the world. I knew that what our team had done was important to share. And so I wanted to make sure that we did that. And I was probably the best person to be able to really relay that story to people. And although it was fear-based in many ways for me, I look back on that now and was really proud of the fact that I put all that together. I made it happen. My team was there. They were answering questions for the crowd too. And I think it was just one of those great moments where everything comes full circle and you can see how far you've come in just a year's time. So were you telling yourself a story about something that you might have been criticized for and said that others were better at it than you are? What if you changed the way you looked at it and said, that is no longer something that I see as a negative. What I bring to the table is actually a positive, something unique that you can offer that others cannot. I mean, for example, in this speaking thing, like I'm speaking all the time now. It doesn't even worry me. I don't have a second thought about it. And it's taken me time to get there. But there might be something that you have to bring that others need to see from you. You need to share with them in order for them to grow and develop. So when I do presentations for people on visibility, one of the things that I try to start to get them to think about is what they bring. And so the question that I ask them is, what do you have that others don't have? How can you stand out? And so I want people to see what they have to offer as valuable, even if they can't see it yet. So when I ask them that question, we talk about the different things that might be positives in their background that they may not be seeing for themselves. No one else has your exact combination of experiences, beliefs, strengths, and things that you're good at? Nobody. So let's stop hiding them and celebrate them instead. So I want to share with you a couple different ways for you to think about this and maybe start opening up your eyes to some things that you have in your background that you could start to see as really valuable and unique and gifts that you bring. So the first one is, let's pretend that you're interviewing for a new role. It's part of the process to identify on your resume and in interviews what makes you different, what makes you stand out compared to other candidates. What do you bring that others don't have? You must have something, right? Every time you've ever been in an interview, you're answering questions and you're trying to show why you should get the job. It's the same thing. We're trying to just think about things differently and maybe just recognize that the results you've had, the accomplishments you've done in the past are really great, and that you need to see them as experiences that make you unique. What makes you the right choice over someone else? And that can be true whether you're interviewing or not. I give you the interview example because a lot of people have been through interviews and they can relate to the situation of thinking about how they bring things to the party that are different than someone else. But I want them to be able to do that every day, not just during an interview. I also wanted to share some questions with you and have you start to think about these questions for yourself. So the first one is, where have you lived? Now, you might not think about that as being unique, but after I got married, I moved from Illinois to Georgia. And my husband had been working there before we got married. So he'd been there about 9 months. We didn't know very many people. So there was a couple of people that we knew. But beyond that, it was starting from scratch. We didn't know any of the other people that were there. And so I started interviewing for a job when we got there. And I had been working about 10 months in a job in Chicago before we moved, but I wanted to, try something new. And so I started interviewing. And in the interview, I'll never forget this. The person who interviewed me asked me a question about what is something that I've done that was be considered brave. And I gave some answer that I can't even remember right now, but he said, "Oh, that was a good answer. I actually thought you might say that you picked up and moved your whole life across the country and that you didn't really know very many people. And I see that as a pretty brave thing that you did because you left your friends and family to start over." And I thought, wow, like this man that I just met sees that something I did was brave. Moving across country is brave. And I never actually thought about it. And he was right. And it made me think about it differently. So I give you that example because people have probably moved to different places. And when you've done that, you get a different perspective. You see things in a new way. You can get that same experience when you travel. If you travel to different states or outside the country, some of my best perspectives have come from different trips I took for work that were, in Singapore, in India, in London, in Zurich, Switzerland. The things that I got to see there just helped me see perspective about the US even and how we do things here versus how they do things there, how we're perceived on both sides. And it just really helped me become a stronger business leader for our company. What are your strengths? Now, you might have Strengths 2.0 results that you've done somewhere along the way, an assessment for that. But there's also free online assessments that you can do to identify your strengths, but understand what your strengths are and what you bring. You might have been told you've been good at other things. So what have you been told that you're good at by others? It's a way to see how others see you. Sometimes we can't see ourselves and what we're good at. How can you add value to other people? I like to think of this as a rising tide lifts all boats. There must be something that you can teach other people that you know, things that you don't think that they know as well as you do, and you're happy to share, or something maybe that you're someone you're mentoring and they need to learn some new skill that you have that they don't have. Could also be soft skills, things that you've done that they don't know how to do that you could share with them. Who do you know? Sometimes you might know someone that you can introduce other people to, you can build connections with. They might actually help you get a connection that helps you do more. You think about people who've got these long, wonderful careers, and they always go back and thank the people in their life or in their career that helped them the most. You could be one of those people that makes that connection for them to get the job that they really want, or they might be able to help you get a job. What work experiences do you have that are unique? Now, this is a big one that I think a lot of people take for granted. So I'm going to share some of mine so that you can see some of the things that I would see as unique for myself and that others have shared with me that are unique for me. Yours are going to be different. So it doesn't mean you have to look at mine and compare in any way. It's just to give you ideas of how I saw this for myself and that I want you to think about your examples for you. through divestitures, acquisitions, mergers. I worked in sales, supply chain, food service, and IT. All of these are different examples of things that maybe not everybody else has had or had at the same time. I've led vendor negotiations. I've worked, obviously, in a Fortune 500 company, global travel, leading global programs, leading turnarounds, leading remote teams, leading internal and external teams, leading huge IT implementations that had never been done before, been a conference speaker, got my MBA, an author, podcast host, executive coach, consultant, obtained assessment and coaching certifications, worked with various companies and leaders to create new mentoring and leadership programs and retreats. And then personally, my experiences in my personal life of being a mom, being a wife, moving to other states, raising kids, getting them off to college, all of those are unique experiences for me. And I think many times we just dismiss or we don't look at the things that we've done in our lives and see them as important. But each one of the experiences that you've had has helped you to create something unique for you and your career and your life. And now you have opportunities to leverage those things and talk about them and share them with others. You've got a list, just like I do, that's got some different things on it, but you may not have seen them as valuable before today's conversation. You just haven't looked at what you have to offer as unique. And I'm trying to get you to think about that as a really big value for you that you bring to any organization, to your team, to your company, things that you have to bring to your organization that help you make better decisions, give you more perspective, and give you opportunities to shine a bit more in your visibility. So now we're going to go into the visibility action. So I've just shared a bunch of experiences that I had. You have a unique set of experiences and ideas that could help someone learn or see a new perspective. You have a list of things that you went through professionally and personally that brought you to where you are now, like I mentioned. But if you dismiss those things, it's just a waste, right? So I don't want you to waste those things. I want you to be able to leverage them. So I want you to do this. Get a notebook out, get a pen, and I want you to set a timer on your phone or your watch for 3 minutes. And I want you to write down everything that you know for a fact you're good at, everything that you could teach to other people, things that you love to do, experiences that you've had, places that you've traveled, just like my list. I don't want you to filter it. I don't want you to question it, whether it should go on the list or not. Just write it down. It can be a combination of personal and professional experiences like I shared. I don't want you to do anything but just write it down for 3 minutes. I want you to pause the episode and come back when you're done. So welcome back. I hope you spent 3 minutes taking down these ideas and writing them for yourself, creating your own list. The reason I gave you a finite amount of time is it prevents your brain from overthinking. And the no filter rule lets you capture whatever shows up in there. Whatever you come up with is important to put down. It's the right things for you to share. So spend some time with what you wrote down. Maybe you never considered those things as unique before, but you can see now that they are. How can you use them and talk about them more? How can you use those things to create more visibility for yourself? Accept them and share those unique gifts with others. It's just another way to be more visible. But if you're not using all the things that you have in your toolbox, so to speak, and in your past and in your experiences, then you might be wasting some of those things, and I want you to be able to leverage them. Thanks so much for joining today on the Visibility Factor podcast, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks so much for listening to the Visibility Factor podcast. Remember that visibility starts with small steps that are intentional and consistent each day. Be bold, be visible, be the leader you were meant to be. Find us and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on all of our social media platforms, which are highlighted in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Visibility Factor podcast.